What's up guys, welcome back and hello if you are new. I hope all of you guys have had a really great week and have got something really nice planned for the weekend. I'm off to Download Festival as a pilot, which is the first actual time I'm going to see live music in probably 18 months. So I'm pretty excited, to be fair. But that's not what I'm talking about today. This band that I'm going to talk about are probably one of the most exciting bands I've heard in a good long while. Maybe one of my most anticipated records of the year. From the moment I heard that initial melody on this Hollow Ache, I could not stop thinking about this band. So please join me as I go down the rabbit hole with Alustrium and their brand new album, A Monument to Silence. So Alustrium are a new band that have signed with Unique Leader. This is their first release on the label. And A Monument to Silence is, kind of without giving too much away, a concept record that's kind of based on the idea of mental health and suicide and things like that. I won't go into it too much because I've got a really great interview with Chris and Mike, the band's two guitarists, which will be going up next week. So I'm really stoked on that. With that in mind though, the music that's been created on here really matches the sense of grandeur that you would get in a concept album. So one of my favorite things for bands to do is to create a melody, and they kind of, reference that melody throughout the album, but in different stages and in slightly different ways as well. So this melody starts literally from the first thing that you hear on the first track, which is this Hollow Ache. And then it kind of comes back as various different iterations. And it might not necessarily be exactly the same melody, but it's in that kind of world that makes you think, oh, I think I've heard this before. I kind of picked out this melody roughly on Hunted, Dreamless Sleep, which is kind of an interlude before we go into the kind of second half of the album, but they're kind of littered all over the rest of the album. And personally, I think this album has some amazing kind of senses of pace. And the double whammy of The Accuser and The Plea are definitely a highlight of mine, but they don't compare to the final track on the album, which is the title track, A Monument to Silence. I was like, oh, I wonder if they're going to sort of bring back that initial melody just from kind of what I'd seen, up until now in the album. And when they did, oh my God, it was like so much bigger than I expected, and it has some of the best lead work I've heard in absolutely years. So they wait until like the 5.5 minute, and that's when the shit gets real, and they bring that initial piano sort of note back in. And the thing for me is it's, after all of this we've been through, we've listened to the entire record, and then you get to this grand finale and it's just like, boom, mic drop, done. Another reason for me singing Alustrium's praises is the sense of pace, whereas a lot of other bands could get quite formulaic and quite boring, really. Alustrium keep things very interesting. Like, for example, the ending section of the second track, Join the Dead, it has these kind of like kendo drums, like quite war imperial sort of sounding, but completely slows the pace from what initially was a really fast track. And you're also introduced to that melody, which is kind of quite seamlessly put forward on the end of Hunted, which moves into The Accuser, which is, again, another fantastic song. That's not to say that Alustrium aren't fast and incredibly technical at the same time, though. Deliverance for the Damned is a fantastic example of that. There's so much going on in this track, and they prove more than once that they can hold their own, especially in a rhythmic sort of capacity. I also think, given that I'm a huge guitar fan, this album is brilliant. You know, Mike and Chris are such fantastic composers together, and they really understand, both rhythmically and in the sense of lead, what each song will need. And I think, you know, it's really quite incredible, given the fact that this is their first release on Unique Leader, which is, you know, a fairly big label. And they've already found this kind of sound. And that goes for every single other member as well. Both Kevin's, you know, the bass and the drums work together incredibly well. And I also think that Deliverance of the Damned is probably one of the high points for Kevin on the drums, who really kind of changes the dynamics a lot. You know, like it'll be the way that he'll kind of add in a different fill, or they'll be still playing the same riff, but he'll change the drum pattern, and it completely changes the perception of what you're kind of listening to, which I thought was really interesting. And then Kevin on bass, you know, those bass lines are really interesting. They kind of follow nicely, but also kind of meander off a little bit, which I always enjoy. And I've also got to say a huge well done to Jerry Martin's vocals, because even though they are just kind of really extreme, there's no real cleans, I think there's going to be scope for cleans in the future. And I also think that his diction really allows you to understand exactly what he's saying and kind of latch on to what would be often really difficult to kind of have as something quite memorable in a chorus, for example. Alustrium were a completely new band to me. I'd never heard of them, and in one fell swoop, they have converted me into a super fan. This is without a doubt one of the most mature, unique, and truly inspiring records that you will hear this year. So make sure you listen to this album, because it is 100% going to be on my album of the years. It's a fantastic record, absolutely outstanding performance. So make sure you pick up the record. You can do so by hitting the link underneath me on Indie Merch. I've also got a discount code, so if you type in Metal Tris, you'll get 10% off of whatever you order. So I hope you guys enjoyed this album review. Let me know what you think. I also want to say thank you ever so much for all the support on my Ko-fi page. It really does mean the world to me. If you did want to donate, you can do so just underneath me as well. So thanks ever so much, and I'll see you guys very soon for another review.